My name is Hope Sacco. I'm 18. Sorry, I turned 19 in a month, so I was getting that mixed up. And I was born in Hartford, Connecticut. I grew up in St. Louis, or I was there from ages 3 to 6, but I then moved to Baltimore when I was 7 for my dad's job. I guess I would definitely say that I grew up in Baltimore. I think that living in Baltimore has mostly shaped who I am, but when I think of my formative years, I think of St. Louis. I just remember my parents always telling me to be kind and having a lot of fun all the time, but also wanting to preserve that main value of being a good and kind person. And I think that that's definitely affected who I am. I go to a high school or I went to a high school that's 83% Black. So, and I think there's 5 Asian people there, and that's including me, and I'm mixed. So I definitely felt like I couldn't navigate that identity in high school. And I thought that representation at my high school of people of color was really important, at least or having diversity in extracurriculars and stuff. So that definitely affected how I spent my time in high school. I felt like there was a lot of inequality manifesting in the school itself. So I kind of tried to work to fix that when I was there. I was the lead editor of my school's newspaper, so I tried to kind of find more ways, more community outreach to kind of reach out to different communities, specifically the Asian community at my school, because I felt like we're really underrepresented and we need to value those voices in our newspaper. It was a lot. I also I think that a lot of my experience in high school has been touched by race. I went on a civil rights trip in the spring of last year before COVID, or maybe in the winter of last year before COVID. And that was what spurred me to do that through my school newspaper. Because I saw people making these immense sacrifices, and you're like, oh, what am I doing for my community? So that was what made me want to do it, but it's still hard. Even if you're not making those huge sacrifices where you're bleeding, And then that's when I feel bad saying that it's hard. My experience as a minority, or half of a minority, is hard because I'm not experiencing stuff like that, but it's still a lot sometimes. I think what's unique about being biracial is that, well, one, you never feel like you're enough of what you are. I'm never gonna feel like I'm white enough or Caucasian enough, but I'm also never gonna feel like I'm Korean enough. And then I think it got to the point where I asked myself, what could I do to rectify that? I think that most of my childhood was mostly monocultural in the sense of being American, because I had an Italian and Irish dad, and my mother was adopted when she was 5, so I never really experienced Korean culture in the sense of my household. And I feel like a lot of what connects Korean people to their culture is their families, and I was disconnected from that side of my family. So coming to Sejong Camp was a way that I tried to become closer to my Korean identity, but I don't think I'll ever feel balanced in a sense. And I think that's an issue that every mixed person experiences. My experience at Sejong has definitely been complicated. I owe this camp so much, definitely, to making me feel more safe in my identity, and I think that it's a really good place for people that are Korean, even me, but I think my experience is still a little different. Being here, it really emphasizes the, oh God, I'm not Korean enough thing. I'm physically, I'm just not Korean enough, And I think that everyone comes here because they feel like that internally. But for me, it's oh God, I'm in this environment where no one looks like me. And I guess sometimes I feel like my experience can't be shared here as a mixed person. I mean, I know everyone will be so accepting and want to hear about it, but my experience is kind of different. So I don't know how much other people can relate to me. Yeah, I would definitely say I have to work harder for my Korean identity. That's not really fair though. I think all mixed people have to work really hard for their identity, or to understand their identity. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that it was worth it to understand my Korean identity. It's hard to be in this environment and think that it's not worth it. I started going here in probably when I was about 12, because that's when my family went to Korea. So that's when I got to like go back to my mom's home, or like where she was born. An experience like that is pretty magnifying. I don't know how I could have gone through that experience and not have wanted to get closer to my Korean identity. Like, I saw the shack where my mother was raised, and it was like concrete and covered in graffiti, and I'm just like sitting there like feeling so disconnected from it, and just feeling so disconnected from Korean culture. And just like my mom's story, like I feel no connection to like the shack where my mother was raised. Like, I don't know, it just all feels really foreign to me, I guess, because my mother was adopted, and I wasn't really raised like learning about what her life could have been like if she wasn't adopted, I guess. I definitely think she feels guilty sometimes in the same way that I do. Like, I'm not Korean enough, definitely. Like, and that she's not the Korean ajumma, or like the Korean mom who's like making us fancy little bento box lunches. I think that that might have been part of it. I definitely think that was part of it, but I hate to think she would think that way, because I don't know. That's, I don't blame her for that at all. You know, when people see me, they don't, like a lot of the reactions I experience from people, or like discussions that I have with people, they don't know that my mother's an adoptee, especially to people, like to Caucasian people. I'm just Asian. Like, and I found that really difficult at my high school. I had not the best friends in high school, but when I would talk about my Asian experience, they would say things like, oh, Hope thinks she's black, like Hope thinks she's a minority. I don't know where they would get that from, but it's so interesting to me. Like, when I'm here, I think that people see me in a totally different way. Like, when I'm around Korean people, they definitely see me in a totally different way than like white people do. Like, to white people, I think that I'm just like Korean. Like, I'm not, they don't consider me white, but here they probably consider me whiter than it's so weird. But as far as how being the daughter of an adoptee has affected me, I'm really lucky to say that my mom has done a lot to compensate for the fact that she was adopted. And I feel bad that she felt like she had to do that, but I don't know, that's not something that I blame her for, am upset for her for. Like, I think there's a lot of things she brings to the table that she wouldn't, you know, if she was like that. Like, her adoptee experience makes her value or understand like the difficulty of understanding your identity more, and like definitely influenced her work and makes her like a more empathetic person. And I don't think she realizes sometimes like the value she has in, I don't know, in being a mother who's an adoptee. Like, she's so much more empathetic to me about the difficulty of being a mixed person and like understanding that experience because she's adopted in a way that I don't think she would if she wasn't adopted, because she had that same struggle of being like, oh God, I'm not Korean enough. And she doesn't want me to have to deal with that. I don't think she realizes at all that my sister and I definitely look up to her and all the work she's done like for adoptees. I mean, my mom also talks about having really difficult formative years, like in elementary and middle school, because she did go to an all-white school and she was never the girl that got asked to school dances and was like liked by anyone. She was like the Asian girl, and that makes me really sad. She also refuses to watch 16 Candles because of Long Duck Dong. Stuff like that, yeah, definitely makes me more empathetic. You know, it's funny, my dad and mom, when my mom was pregnant with me, my mom was saying to my dad, like, I'm worried she's not gonna have any friends. Like, I'm worried she's not gonna be liked. And my dad's like, I just hope she doesn't have like any serious issues. But my mom, I think that that experience definitely affected her, like worrying about her kids having that same experience, which makes me sad. I think I'm empathetic to the adoptees at camp because I guess I didn't even realize that this kind of applied to me until recently, but kind of mourning another life you could have had that you have never experienced, like another family and I guess I kind of somewhat have that experience, like, oh, I never got to know my mother's family, or like, what if I had been surrounded by more Korean family, but not in the same way. I don't think, not in as intense and directly as a way. I don't know. I can't. That just seems really difficult. And I don't know. I remember my friend talking to me about that a little bit, but it made her upset to talk about her birth family, and like not being able to contact them or something. I can't imagine that. Just wondering like what choices could have caused things to go differently. That's a plaguing question. And I hate that adoptees have to ask that question a lot in a way that so directly affects their lives. I've really been wanting to talk to the other biracial kids at camp because I don't know, at least at a young age, I felt really distant from my identity. I don't know, it was more like a monster I shut away in a closet. Not a monster, just maybe something I shut away in a closet, just because it wasn't something that directly affected me yet, but I think it's better to have these conversations earlier on. For me, there's other Waitians at this camp, but I find myself putting myself in the position of like an outsider looking at me because I'm like, wait, like, what is that person? Like, what race are they? Or like, what's their ethnicity? And then I don't know, I just find it ironic. And there's some kids here who are mixed but look white passing, and then I'm asking questions to myself like, oh, I wonder more about their background and stuff. And I'm sure that people look at me and have those same questions. So I just find it ironic when I'm witnessing other mixed people. Like, yeah. My name is Hope Sacco, and this is my Korean American story.